If you walked into a fertility clinic today with a complex diagnosis, like maybe low ovarian reserve, chances are you'd eventually be handed a fairly generic supplement protocol.
Right, the standard printout.
Exactly. You get the standardized list, you buy the bottles off a shelf, and you just sort of, you just hope it works.
Yeah.
But what if the secret to improving egg quality isn't about throwing a broad spectrum net at the problem, but essentially creating a hyper-specific, customized biological microclimate for your ovaries?
Well, the thing is, the human reproductive system is just incredibly dynamic. And when we apply a static, generic solution to, a dynamic biological process,
It's not going to match up.
right, the results are going to be frustratingly unpredictable. A prepackaged protocol simply cannot account for the daily microscopic fluctuations in a specific patient's hormonal matrix.
Which is exactly why our mission for today's deep dive is to explore a radically different methodology. We're looking at an extensive clinical guide that details the approach of Mike Berkeley, who is a licensed acupuncturist and a fellow of the American Board of Oriental Reproductive Medicine.
Hmm.
And the goal here is to basically bypass all the overwhelming generalized advice you find on internet forums.
Oh, there's so much of it out there.
So much. And instead, we want to uncover the actual biological mechanisms behind customized herbal medicine. We really want to understand how meticulously tailored plant compounds claim to biologically support the egg, the uterus, and the overall conception cycle.
Yeah, especially for women navigating really tough hurdles, like poor egg quality.
Right. Okay, let's unpack this, because to really grasp the clinical impact of this approach, we have to contrast it with that standard supplement aisle we were just talking about.
Exactly. I mean, over-the-counter fertility supplements often function kind of like broad-spectrum antibiotics.
Oh,
They just blanket the system, hoping to hit the right target somewhere along the way. But a customized herbal formulation, on the other hand, is designed to act more like a targeted laser.
so it's much more precise.
Highly precise. Before a single formula is even drafted, there's an exhaustive review of the patient's medical history, the minute details of their menstrual cycle, specific lab results, and of course, their ultimate treatment goals.
So it's like, instead of just buying a one-size-fits-all suit off the rack, which is what the OTC supplements are,
Right.
this customized approach is like going to a master tailor. You know, someone who measures every single inch of your specific biological timeline.
I love that analogy, yeah. Because instead of asking, what supplements are good for fertility in general, the clinician is asking what specific biological deficits are holding this particular reproductive system back.
Right, because my fertility picture is going to look vastly different from someone else's.
Completely different. Every woman's fertility picture involves a totally unique combination of things. You're looking at baseline circulation, systemic inflammation levels, sleep quality, chronic stress, and specific hormonal feedback loops.
And so the medicine actually adapts to those deficits.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Clinically, if a patient's labs and cycle history indicate that, say, localized ovarian blood flow is the primary bottleneck,
Okay.
then the formula is heavily weighted towards circulatory support.
Oh.
But if the issue is the cellular energy of the egg itself, then the botanical constituents shift toward mitochondrial support.
Wow. So it is highly targeted, allowing it to address the exact biological roadblocks unique to that one patient.
Yeah.
Let's actually zoom in on that cellular reality. If we are creating a customized microclimate, we really need to look at what is happening inside the ovary.
We do.
Because I think a lot of people had this mental image of an egg just sitting on a shelf, right? Just waiting to drop each month. But the biological timeline is actually staggering.
Oh, it really is.
Here's a fact that always shifts my perspective when I think about this. The egg that eventually created you was actually formed inside your grandmother's womb when your own mother was just a fetus developing there.
It's wild to think about. It's a remarkable biological continuity.
It really is.
A woman is born with all the eggs she will ever have, and those eggs basically remain in a state of suspended animation for decades.
Right.
But the crucial part of the timeline for our discussion today is the awakening period.
Okay, what does that look like?
Well, an egg doesn't just suddenly mature in 2 weeks. The follicle, which is the fluid-filled sac housing the egg, goes through a maturation runway that takes upwards of 100 days before ovulation.
100 days? That's over 3 months.
Yeah, and during that entire multi-month journey, the developing egg is highly, highly sensitive to the surrounding biological environment.
And the source material highlights 5 specific mechanical ways that customized herbs support that 100-day runway.
They do.
So let's dig into the first one, which is antioxidant protection. And I kind of want to move past the basic idea of antioxidants just being a shield. Let's look at how free radicals actually damage an egg.
Right, because during that long awakening period we talked about, the follicle is basically soaking in surrounding fluid.
Okay.
And if that fluid is full of reactive oxygen species, these highly unstable molecules, you get lipid peroxidation.
Which sounds intense. What is that?
It literally shears the lipid membranes of the cells and damages the DNA.
Oh, wow. So it's actively destroying the egg's structure.
Exactly. That oxidative stress creates a highly toxic local environment. It degrades the structural integrity of the egg before it even has a chance to fully mature.
So where do the customized herbs come in here?
Well, when a customized formula incorporates specific medicinal plants rich in targeted antioxidants, those compounds aren't just acting as passive shields, they're active biological janitors.
Biological janitors. I like that.
Yeah, they neutralize the reactive oxygen species in the follicular fluid. They actually alter the composition of that fluid, so the egg is maturing in a clean, nutrient-rich environment rather than a toxic one.
Which directly ties into the second point from the guide, which is mitochondrial support.
Right.
Now, as an egg ages, its mitochondrial DNA accumulates mutations, and its ability to produce ATP drops significantly. And ATP is the actual chemical energy of the cell, right?
Exactly. And an egg needs a massive amount of ATP to execute the complex cell division required for fertilization.
So it's basically running out of battery.
The energy demands are astronomical, honestly. When an egg prepares to ovulate and fertilize, it has to pull chromosomes apart and reorganize them along these things called spindle fibers.
Okay.
If the cellular battery is drained, those spindle fibers essentially misfire. And that leads to chromosomal abnormalities or just a total failure to fertilize.
And the plant constituents can help with this.
Yes. Certain plant constituents actively support the enzymatic pathways within the mitochondria. They are physically assisting the cell in maximizing its ATP production.
So we are delivering the biological precursors to keep the cellular battery charged. But that requires a physical delivery system, which brings us to the third mechanism.
Improved ovarian blood flow.
Right. Because you can have all the mitochondrial precursors and antioxidants in your system, but if the local microcirculation to the ovary is sluggish,
none of it reaches the follicle.
Exactly.
The technical term here is angiogenesis, which is the formation of new blood vessels. The growing follicle relies entirely on the surrounding capillary network to deliver oxygen, hormones, and nutrients.
So how do the herbs influence that?
Formulas chosen for circulatory support contain constituents that actually help dilate those localized blood vessels and promote healthier microcirculation.
Oh, I see.
We're physically changing the vascular infrastructure of the ovary, ensuring a much higher volume of nutrient-rich blood is saturating those developing follicles.
And that vascular infrastructure is feeding a very specific group of cells, which is the fourth area of support.
The granulosa cells.
Yes, the granulosa cells are fascinating. Because from the clinical guide, it's clear these aren't just structural walls holding the egg in place, right? They are the biochemical nurse cells.
That's a great way to put it. The egg doesn't actually have a direct blood supply of its own.
Wait, really? It doesn't?
No, it relies entirely on the granulosa cells to absorb the nutrients from the blood and literally pass them into the egg through these tiny microscopic tunnels called gap junctions.
Wow.
And the bidirectional signaling happening there is just incredibly complex. The granulosa cells are also responsible for hormone synthesis.
Okay, what kind of hormones?
They take androgens and convert them into estrogens, which is absolutely vital for the continued growth of the follicle.
Okay, so customized plant medicines directly influence the health and metabolic activity of these granulosa cells.
Exactly. By optimizing the nurse cells, you ensure the egg receives both the chemical signals and the physical nutrients it needs to survive the maturation process.
And those chemical signals don't just stay in the ovary.
No, they don't.
Which brings us to the fifth mechanism, which involves the hypothalamic pituitary ovarian axis, the HPO axis.
Right.
This is the biochemical feedback loop where your brain sends hormones like FSH and LH down to the ovaries, and then the ovaries send estrogen and progesterone back up to the brain to report on their progress.
It is a continuous conversation.
Yeah.
And if there is static on that line, like if the brain isn't pulsing hormones at the right frequency or the ovaries just aren't responding properly, the entire cycle becomes dysregulated.
And the botanicals help clear the static.
Exactly. The botanical compounds in these customized formulas can gently modulate that feedback loop. They help clarify the signals along the HPO axis, which encourages more regular follicular recruitment, and a much more predictable hormonal rhythm.
Okay, I need to pause here and look at this from a slightly skeptical perspective.
Hmm.
Wait, if a woman already has a diagnosed low ovarian reserve, meaning the physical count of primordial follicles is extremely low, we have to be clear that herbs cannot magically sprout new eggs.
Absolutely not.
You can't stimulate a follicle that physically does not exist, right?
No, you can't. That is a fundamental biological truth, and what's fascinating here is that it's a vital distinction in Berkeley's clinical approach.
Okay.
Customized herbal medicine does not create new eggs. What it does is relentlessly optimize the microenvironment for the cohort of eggs that are currently being recruited.
Ah, okay. So it's about maximizing the potential of the remaining pool.
Yes. If a woman only has a few eggs attempting to mature in a given cycle, the customized approach ensures those specific eggs are protected from oxidative stress.
Right.
It ensures they are fully energized by their mitochondria and bathed in a rich blood supply. It's about securing the highest possible quality from the existing reserve rather than artificially trying to inflate the quantity.
Which is precisely the goal. Whether the patient is attempting natural conception or going into an IVF retrieval, the objective is to ensure that the eggs retrieved or ovulated have been given the optimal biological conditions during that whole 100-day runway.
Exactly.
But a high-quality, fully energized egg is still really only half the equation, right?
Oh, definitely.
Once you have the embryo, it needs a receptive place to implant. The soil needs to be prepared.
Yes.
So let's shift from the microenvironment of the ovary to the physical landscape of the uterus. The clinical guide outlines 4 specific ways customized herbs prepare the endometrial lining.
Implantation is arguably the most delicate biological handshake in human reproduction.
That's a good way to describe it.
If the uterine environment is hostile, even a genetically perfect embryo will fail to attach. So the first pillar of preparing that environment, much like with the ovaries, relies on enhanced endometrial blood flow.
We are looking at the spiral arteries in the basal layer of the uterus.
Yeah.
When we increase the microcirculation there, we aren't just talking about making the lining thicker, though obviously thickness is important for ultrasound measurements.
Sure.
We are talking about vascularization. The herbs help build a dense, healthy network of tiny blood vessels just beneath the surface of the lining, ready to connect with and supply blood to an implanting embryo.
And that vascular network is being built during a process of constant remodeling. The endometrium is a highly dynamic tissue.
Right. It changes throughout the month.
Yes. In the first half of the cycle, the proliferative phase, estrogen drives the rapid cellular division and thickening of the lining. Then, after ovulation, progesterone triggers the secretory phase, where the lining completely changes its texture.
It stops growing and becomes glandular, sticky, and receptive.
Exactly.
Which brings us to the second pillar, assisting that tissue remodeling. Plant compounds can actively upregulate receptor sensitivity, ensuring the uterine tissue is highly responsive to the body's own estrogen and progesterone.
So both the buildup phase and the textural shift happen efficiently.
Right. It ensures the architecture of the lining is structurally sound. But structural integrity isn't enough if the local immune environment is on high alert.
Oh, this is huge.
Yeah, this is where the third pillar, immune and inflammatory balance, becomes critical. The uterus contains its own localized immune system, including specific macrophages and natural killer cells.
Right, because inflammation is essentially the body's defense mechanism against foreign invaders.
Right.
And genetically speaking, an embryo is a foreign body. It shares half its DNA with a completely different human.
Which is wild when you think about it. If the uterine lining is highly inflamed, the local immune system will literally attack the embryo instead of welcoming it.
Yeah, and that's where the anti-inflammatory botanical constituents come in. They help downregulate those inflammatory cytokines.
Okay.
They modulate the local immune response, shifting it from a state of alert defense to a state of immune tolerance. They calm the tissue, creating a physical environment that is biochemically signaling safety to the implanting embryo.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me. All of these mechanisms, blood flow, tissue remodeling, immune modulation, they bring us to the fourth pillar and honestly the most fascinating part of the customized approach, synchronized timing.
The timing is everything.
This is where the idea of integration with Western medicine really shines. If a patient is undergoing an IVF cycle, the pharmaceutical stimulation drugs are like the brass section of an orchestra.
Oh, I like that.
They are playing a very loud, very powerful, and absolutely necessary tune to stimulate multiple follicles.
And standard over-the-counter supplements can't respond to that dynamic music, but customized herbs act more like the strings and woodwinds.
Right.
The formula is continuously adjusted across the cycle to harmonize with the medications.
The synchronization is vital. During the stimulation phase, the herbs are adjusted to support blood flow and mitigate the side effects of the heavy hormones. Then, post-retrieval, the formula shifts entirely to focus on recovering the ovaries and dropping inflammation.
Yeah, and when it's time for the embryo transfer, the formula changes again, specifically targeting the receptivity of the lining. You aren't taking a follicular phase formula during the luteal implantation window.
Because the music has changed.
Exactly. This is the literal definition of clinical orchestration. The herbs are coordinated thoughtfully with the concurrent fertility medications.
They don't compete with them?
No, they do not compete with the pharmaceuticals. They act as a well-tolerated dynamic partner. The Western medications do the heavy lifting of stimulation, while the customized plant medicines manage the biological fallout, optimize the local tissue environments, and basically maintain systemic balance.
It's really about utilizing the raw power of Western science alongside the nuanced regulatory capacity of traditional botanical medicine.
It really is.
But just to be clear, we aren't bashing Western pharmaceuticals here, right? Because IVF obviously relies entirely on those medications, and any critical thinker is immediately going to ask about the safety profile of mixing these compounds.
This raises an important question, and the source material is very clear on this. It is not anti-pharma.
Right.
The safety profile is heavily reliant on the clinical setting. There is a vast divide between the dietary supplement industry, which is largely self-regulated, and board-certified clinical herbalism.
Yeah, professional formulas prescribed in a clinical setting undergo rigorous pharmacovigilance.
Exactly. We are talking about strict quality control of the raw materials, testing for heavy metals, ensuring purity, and monitoring for hepatotoxicity.
Making sure the liver and kidneys aren't being overburdened while they're also processing all those heavy IVF medications.
Right. When integrated properly by a specialist, the data reflects an exceptionally low inherent risk profile. Serious adverse events requiring hospitalization from professionally prescribed herbs in the U.S. are exceedingly rare.
Especially when contrasted with the known side effects and raw potency of pharmaceutical interventions alone.
Exactly. The safety comes from the customization, the quality of the materials, and the continuous clinical monitoring.
So, what does this all mean? If we pull all of this together and look at the larger narrative, the ultimate takeaway from Berkeley's clinical guide is profound empowerment.
It really is empowering.
For individuals facing the daunting reality of low ovarian reserve or repeated implantation failure, the standard medical model can often leave you feeling entirely out of control.
Yeah, it feels like a numbers game where you are just waiting for the odds to eventually tip in your favor.
But customized herbal medicine shifts that paradigm entirely. It provides a highly practical, actionable pathway to actively alter the biological variables.
You are no longer just waiting. You are actively improving localized blood flow, supporting cellular energy production, modulating immune responses, and synchronizing your biological rhythms.
It maximizes the potential of every single cycle, giving whatever resources your body has left the absolute best possible chance to succeed.
Well said.
And for any of our listeners who are navigating this space, who want to explore what building this tailored microclimate could look like for their own reproductive journey, the clinical guide provides a direct next step.
It does.
You can actually schedule a no-cost herbal medicine consultation with Mike Berkeley to review your specific cycle history. His office number is 212-685-0985. Again, you can reach his clinic at 212-685-0985. It is absolutely worth exploring if a highly targeted, customized approach is the missing variable in your protocol.
It is a remarkable clinical resource. And, as we conclude our deep dive today, I just keep returning to our discussion of the hypothalamic pituitary ovarian axis.
Oh, yeah.
Just the reality that specific compounds synthesized by plant roots, leaves, and stems can essentially speak the biochemical language of the human brain-ovary feedback loop so fluently.
It's incredible.
It really is. It makes you wonder, if botanical medicine can so elegantly modulate these complex hormonal highways, what other ancient biological dialogues between human physiology and the natural world are we just beginning to rediscover in the landscape of modern medicine?